Hello everyone, my name is Ehab and this is English in 10, where we talk about English, we practice English, and hopefully in 10 minutes you learn something about English. Today, the topic is going to be present tense and past tense. A lot of times when I talk to students, when they are having a conversation, or when students are writing something, such as a paragraph or an essay, there are errors that I see from present and past. Okay, so I'm going to show you examples of where you need to use present tense and then other examples where you must use past tense. The verb tense, guys, is very, very important. Okay, you have to ask yourself when you are saying something or when you are writing something, are you telling me something that happens as routine or something which is a general truth? Are you telling me about something which occurred at a definite or specific time in the past? Or are you going to tell me about something which took place in the future? Now, for today, again, the focus is going to be present and past. Okay, we're going to talk about certain phrases or wording that we use with both kinds. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about how the subject is going to affect the verb tense, specifically when we're talking about present tense. And I will talk a little bit about past tense too, because the spelling can be a little bit weird, because we do have verbs which are regular, and then we also have verbs which are irregular. Okay, for present tense, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. Okay, the first thing that I want to point out is what wording or what phrases do we use when we use the present tense? Because again, present tense should be something that's a general truth, something that's routine, something that happens all the time. So you're going to see words like every day or all the time. These things signal to people who are going to listen to you speak, or even when they read something that you write, that you are going to be using the present tense. All right. A lot of times, adverbs of frequency, usually, always, sometimes, never, all of those probably are going to indicate that we need to be using the present tense. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to point out is the subject. This becomes very, very important, specifically when we are talking about the present tense. And this also goes a little bit to subject-verb agreement, but that's going to be another video. All right, if I say I play basketball every day. So anytime we say I, if I said we, if I said they, you, the verb stays the same. Nothing changes about the verb. Now, as soon as I say he or she, or I use a name like Tom or Lisa or John, now we have to change that verb and we have to put an S and we have to make it singular. Now, what makes this doubly confusing is that we don't just simply put an S on all of the verbs. The spelling is going to change. For example, when we have the verb cry, if I said a baby, we need to drop this and put IES, cries at night. That's how we make it present tense singular. A lot of times when the verb ends with a CH, we don't just put S, now I need to put ES. So, Lisa watches television every night. We have an adverb here of frequency. John always goes to school. Now, in these instances here, all of them needed to be changed because the subject was singular. And this is the case for present tense. So keep that in mind. When we are talking about present tense, the subject is very important. Also, these are words or phrases that we use when we are using the present tense. So let's talk about past tense next, all right? Okay, so now we're going to talk about past tense. A thing to remember about past tense is we have a group of verbs which we call regular and irregular. So I'll get to that in a moment. But when we are using past tense, obviously there is some phrase or some word that lets us know that it was completed in the past. They worked last night. Sarah played basketball last week. Tom started a business when he lived in Japan. Now, a lot of times we say last night. You can use other words like yesterday. You can give me a day, last Monday. That would be okay too. But sometimes we use time clauses. Time clauses are okay when we are talking about the past tense. It gives us an indication of when something happened and when it was complete. Now, so far, if you guys have noticed, we just take the verb and we just put ed. They worked last night. With past tense, the thing to remember is that it doesn't matter what the subject is. That's how it's different from present tense. The subject has no bearing at all on what happens with the verb. So I can say they, I can say he, she, you, Tom, Lisa, Sarah, John, doesn't matter. It's always going to be past. Sarah played basketball last week or yesterday or last Monday. These are what we call regular verbs. We just simply add ed. Now, started is another regular verb. These verbs here are irregular, which means when we make them past tense, we don't simply just put ed. All right? We are going to have to change the spelling completely. So ate is from the verb eat. But again, the spelling totally changes. Took is from the verb take. So, I ate a pizza 2 weeks ago. They took an exam a month ago. So, keep that in mind. There are some which we call irregular. And the irregular verbs, you just have to memorize them. And that comes with practice, that comes with reading, and more exposure to the language. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the conclusion. Okay, so finally we're here. We're at the conclusion. And let's wrap up what we've talked about today. And let's see what we've learned. What I've done is I've put 7 sentences on the board. Each one has a verb. I'm going to read one by one. All right, couple of things to look after. Look for what wording I use, what phrase I use. If it's present tense, keep the subject in mind. If it is past tense, you're going to have to see if it's using the regular or the irregular verb. All right. So let's take it one by one, and we'll see what we remember. Okay, for number 1, Linda blank a job after she finished college. So, what do you think the answer is there? Okay, if you said past tense, you're right. So, Lisa got a job. Remember, when we use a time clause, that tells me that something happened in the past. Very important to look at the verb. This one here says finished. So if it says finished, then I'm assuming it's in the past. Now, got. This is an irregular verb. If you notice the spelling, we don't just put ed here. We have to change that spelling. They blank meals every night. This one should be present tense. Now, because the subject is they, we don't change the verb. You can leave it as is. Again, every night. Every night tells me that something is routine. Number 3. John usually blank juice in the morning. For this one here, should also be present tense, but now I need to put an S. We have to make sure that that verb is singular because John. Remember, usually when we use adverbs of frequency, like usually, sometimes, always, never. Most of the time it's going to be a present tense verb. Sarah blank in China in 2018. If we give you a specific date and it's in the past, should be past tense. Now, teach, we don't put ed because it's an irregular verb. So, taught in China in 2018. He blank every day after school. Again, every day should tell me that it is present tense, but subject, he. This one ends in Y. So we don't just put S, we have to change it. IES. She blank every morning. Should be present tense. And again, we just put an S there to make it singular. Tom never eats candy. This should be present tense. We have never, which is an adverb of frequency. There's nothing else that tells me that it's in the past, so we're going to use present tense. But very important, we're going to put an S because Tom is singular. I hope you guys learned something today. Until next time, bye for now, guys, and see you in the next video.